One of the medicines they gave me, I had a anaphylactic shock and a cardiac arrest.
For Gisborne resident Josh Grant, fishing has always been a passion, but these days it looks a bit different.
So that was sort of initiated from my partner. So he was sort of saying, how can we get Josh back out there fishing, doing what he loves? And he kind of did a bit of research and said, what about this drone fishing? So we spoke to the family. We kept it hidden from Josh, but we all had family conversations about raising a bit of money so Josh could get the drone that he wanted to and continue doing what he loves.
Fly the drone out, drop the baits in the water, and then fingers crossed something bites it, and I flick the switch on the electric reel and bring it back in.
It all started with pins and needles in his foot, but soon after, Josh couldn't walk.
The doctor had strapped up his back and he said it was like a pinched nerve, or he wasn't really sure. And then as the evening went on, the pins and needles started to sort of travel up his other leg and up his chest, and I said, I think we need to take it to A&E.
While waiting for answers, Josh's symptoms continued to get worse.
My first symptom was pins and needles in one of my legs, and then that leg eventually went numb, and the ability to use it went away, and then sort of it just started from the bottom of my spinal cord and worked its way up, and yeah, the paralysis just continued to travel up my body. Couldn't move my arms, couldn't move anything really except my facial muscles and head and neck.
For Josh and his family, the hardest part was not being able to be together.
That night they found a lesion on my spinal cord, so they decided straight away that I was getting flown by the ambulance to Waikato Hospital. That night the government announced the latest lockdown. When you go through with the ability of not being able to walk and losing all that on your own in a little room by yourself was very, very tough.
It's unfair. It's unfair that he went through that. The first week was when Josh lost pretty much his body, and he went through that on his own.
As a mother, being told she couldn't be with her son because of COVID was heartbreaking.
They rang me because we weren't able to go up there and said that they were flying Josh to Waikato, but I couldn't go. And they couldn't really tell me what was wrong with him. They just said there was, something on his spinal cord.
She was really stressing being the mother, I suppose, But I was just like, they'll be raised in the hospital, he'll be fine, I'll sort it out and give him some meds and he'll be on his way. But yeah, just every time we'd ring him up and the news would just get worse and worse.
It was a week before Karen and Daryl could get a travel exemption to be with their son, but even then, it wasn't smooth sailing.
The whole time we were up there, we were kept getting locked out of the hospital. In the end, Daryl was the only one that was allowed in because Josh needed help. So they saw Daryl as, helping them out, so he was allowed in.
Karen returned to Gisborne during the week to work before making the 5-hour trip to see Josh on the weekends.
Even though I went up in the weekends, I still wasn't allowed to go in. There was only one of us at one time, and by that stage there was only one person full stop.
The only contact Karen could have with her son was over a brick wall.
His birthday was up there with just Daryl, and there was a little garden that Daryl could take him into, and I could chat to him over the wall for a few minutes.
While the doctors looked for answers, Josh underwent plasma exchange 4 times. He was told his condition was life-threatening.
So they're basically draining all your blood out of your body and replacing it with good plasma. He's probably had 2 Panadols a year before this, prior to this. Next thing he's getting this tube stuck through his neck, right down into his heart, and the specialist says, whatever you do, don't move, otherwise you'll probably die.
After what felt like eternity for Josh and his family, finally, a diagnosis.
I got diagnosed with this transverse myelitis. It's a pretty big unknown, I suppose. I think it's just a fancy name they gave it, but essentially it was an infection on the spinal cord. One of the drugs they gave me just decided to work. Started to get a bit of preservation down to C7, T1, so I got the use of my arms back. The still weak, but you know, they work nonetheless. I can feed myself and stuff, which I'm grateful for.
Josh was moved into recovery, but his medical journey was far from over.
The young nurse, she was probably about 20. She rings us up and says, "Oh, you might want to come down. Josh's having problem with breathing." So we went down and the nurse was in tears, and she says he's had an anaphylactic shock and he's had a cardiac arrest. So that was pretty hard. So we had to go. He actually come out of that. He actually died there for a bit, but he come back. And yeah, it's pretty hard. And then he recovered from that, and they put him into ICU, and then he had to watch a kid die at the end of his bed in ICU. That was freaking hard.
Josh spent 2 months alone in Otara's spinal unit as Auckland remained in lockdown.
So when Josh went to the Auckland Spinal Unit, once again Daryl and I were locked out. I think it took us to like mid-December before we could get to him. And he went on the 27th of October, it was the day after his birthday.
Returning home to Gisborne, the family had another battle on their hands. Being diagnosed with an injury meant he was no longer eligible for ACC.
Josh thought he had got the pins and needles from work, so he went through the ACC form at the start. They actually covered his wages for about 2 months, which was pretty awesome, you know. Then when he was going to go to Otara, that's when they said, we're going to cut off your ACC.
It's a bloody kick in the teeth, to be honest. You see a lot of other people who have injuries instead of illnesses, and their, you know, injuries are alcohol related or something like that, and they're, you know, better off in terms of funding and support through ACC. Being on the Ministry of Health, you just sent home with the bare minimum, or just enough to what can get you by.
The family had to find the money to pay for modifications to make their home wheelchair friendly, while waiting for the Ministry of Health to replace the only door that would give Josh access.
The ministry said they measured up the driveway, and they said that the 2 strips that we have there, he can put 1 wheel on it of his wheelchair on each strip, and it should be adequate enough for him to get up and down. If he went like that way a little bit, he'd like go in the middle and fall off the driveway. So we actually had to fill in the centre bit.
There's a real difference between someone that is ministry funded and someone on ACC. So in Josh's condition, if he was ACC, I have been told that he would have 24-hour care, which mean that, you know, Josh would get out there more. But because he's not, he only gets 6 hours a day, and that's broken up.
As a social worker, Josh's cousin Lana was able to help him and the family navigate the physical and mental challenges ahead.
Josh was really lucky that there didn't need to be any bathroom modifications, but getting his door done so he can get in and out of his home, as simple as that. We're still waiting, and there's a limit to how much we can actually access for him. That's not fair. He should be able to get in and out of his house safely and easily.
Friends and family have rallied together to help raise funds to purchase equipment to allow Josh a better quality of life.
A good group of friends started a Give a Little page, which was huge really. It enabled me to buy a van, which was a huge help to start with in terms of getting out to appointments, just getting out in the community, being able to, you know, go out and socialise.
Prior to his illness, Josh was an avid hunter and fisherman, spending his childhood fishing with his grandfather.
Real adventurous little kid. It's like we used to basically send him to his papa's every holidays because he used to love fishing and stuff like that, and his grandfather lives at a beach.
It's been a tough couple of years for the Grant family, who have only just found out 11 months after Josh being home that he was eligible for support payments.
It's been tough, but it has made us quite close. It's a bit of a journey, and we just try and take one day at a time, and we have a lot of good days and a lot of bad days.
What would you say is the hardest part of all of this for you?
Watching my son go through this, yeah, it's been really hard. Yeah, just watching him every day struggles. Sorry. Yeah. Yep, just wanting him to have a good life.
Josh is now working in an admin role looking after trucks and parts. He's also secured a physio to help him get stronger so he can be more independent. Renee Lola here, Local Focus.